Hello everybody and welcome to the Quilters Apothecary. Today we are going to be doing a tutorial on a border treatment using the Mystical V ruler. A few of the other rulers we're going to be using is the new designer ruler, which is fantastic for doing some marking. We're going to look at a few cornerstones and then attack the border. Again, one of the methods that I prefer is a no measure border where we start from the middle and we work our way out. I've never been very fond of math, so those type of borders tend to be my favorites. So let's go over to the machine and let's learn how to quilt this wonderful border treatment out. Let's first establish that what we have here is a 7-inch border. Here is our corner. It works its way into the center. The only registration line that I have marked is the center line. Now we would have folded all 4 sides of the quilt and located the center of each border before we loaded the quilt. And then of course it would be a mirror image from the middle out to the right side. The ruler we're going to be utilizing today for this particular border is the Mystical V, and I already have my tape marks here. I have it marked at the bottom line, which is of course the 5-inch line. I have the 4-inch line marked, I have the 3-inch line marked, and then I also have the 2-inch line marked. And that's our registration lines for this particular border. So let's get started. I have my stitches locked. Here is the very center of the border. I'm going to bring my V over. I'm going to slide it right into that foot. I'm going to make sure that my tape goes right to the line so that way it's even right across. I also make sure that the center line on my V ruler is lined up. Remember, this is a stopper, so that's where it's going to stop. Start my machine. Come up. Go to the line, move the ruler, come aside, make sure to line up again this straight line so it's right down the center. I'm also going to make sure to double check down here, make sure that that tape lines up so we have the same height. Everything lines up, and actually this lines up wonderfully with the previous sew line, so that's kind of a third way to check to make sure you're getting that perfect V. Now we're going to come down, I slide up, I go to where the ruler stops, slide my ruler, come down to the side, make sure that this line is lined up again. Everything's good. And now I'm going to continue all the way over to the end of the border as far as I choose to go for this particular border treatment. Slide the ruler. I'm going to continue up, make sure my tape is lined up perfectly straight across. Come up, lock. Move the ruler, come down, and I'm going to get this perfect point up at the top of my V. Now, as you look here, what you're going to see is I'm close to the edge of my border. Right now we're doing a fancy border treatment, but I'm going to do some special stuff over in this corner. Again, the whole point of this particular border treatment, for me personally, is to have it look wonderful, but also not have to do a lot of math, because I have no interest in math. Here is the center of our border. Our next step is going to be marking the valleys and the peaks. So I just make sure to line up my ruler, and right now I'm using the designer ruler, and I make sure to use a horizontal line right on the seam or the ditch of your border, and then I'm very simply going to mark, slide, make sure to line this up so that that way you make sure that your line is perfectly vertical. Boom, 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 all the way over. And for me, what we have is from the center out, 1, 2, 3 on this particular border, which is a small border, but it works great for this tutorial. So now let's move on to our next step. Now we're going to go in and add 3 V shapes inside the main V shape. I'm going to slide my ruler over, and again, we've marked this center line all the way up into the peak of the V shape. My center line here on the V ruler goes right on the center line that I've marked there. I make sure that my tape line comes down so that they are all consistent in height. I'm going to travel the ditch. Now I'm going to go up. Here's the peak. Stop, pause, turn, slide the ruler, make sure my center line relines up. Come down. Now I'm going to travel the ditch again. Come in about the same distance. So we're going, it looks like about 1/2 of an inch is what I've chose. And now I'm going to slide this back up, and I'm going to go to my next height. Now again, I'm going to line up that center line. I moved my foot over too far, so now I'm going to go back the other way just a little bit. Line that up with the center. Make sure my tape is lined up right on my seam line or my ditch line in the border itself. Come up, slide the ruler, come down, make sure my center line is lined up, make sure my tape is lined up. And then again, I'm going to come down to the next height, and we're going to come down to that next tape, which is going to be our 2-inch line. Make sure that that is centered up. I'm going to travel the ditch over, come up, stop, slide the ruler, make sure my line is lined up, make sure it's straight, and then I'm going to come down. Now I've created 3 valleys. I'm going to work my way all the way over and do that inside each one of these to the center. Now at that point, what I could do if I were working in a traditional border rather than a tutorial is I would work my way from the center all the way over to the left and then back, so that by the time I'm done, I end up with this, with my 3 V shapes inside. And then we would move on to our next step. So let me move toward the center. Do my next V, make sure that that lines up. It's going to be the 4-inch line for me. For this particular design, slide it up, my center line lines up, I come over, slide up, slide my ruler over, make sure that line is lined up, make sure my tape is lined up here, that way I'm not going to have a slanted line. Come down, and then we're going to slide back in the ditch, and we're going to repeat the process that we just did in that first one. So I line up my center line, I come down to the 3-inch mark, make sure that that line is straight, make sure that that lines up on the bottom with the tape, slide up, slide the ball, lock it, make sure it's all lined up, come down. Once you use this wonderful ruler a little bit, you're going to get really comfortable and you're going to move pretty darn fast. Just like anything, it takes a little bit of time to get comfortable with anything new. Come up, I've lined that up perfectly. I'm going to come up, slide right up into the seam, come back down, lock it, line up my line, my tape is lined up. Now I have my 3rd perfect V. Now I'm going to travel the ditch and I'm going to do my centerpiece. The other thing I want you to remember is if you're traveling the ditch in that seam to get to the next V, you can use your V ruler as a ditch ruler. So slide right over, turn your ruler, reline up that center. We're going to go down to 4 inches and repeat the process that we've just repeated on the other 2 Vs. Now we're over to the left side of our border, and actually now we're going to come over and we're going to work our way back, and in the valley of each V shape we're going to go in and we're going to lay in a diamond to add another design element, which we will later go in and fill to really add some pizzazz to this amazing border. So I'm going to travel over. And now I'm going to travel up just like as if I were ditching. So I'm going to travel right on that sew line. I'm going to try to keep it right on there. Now the thing to remember is if you do go off this line a little bit when you're doing this particular portion, Remember, you can come back with the ruler when you are completely done with this portion of the border before you roll. And you can actually just thicken that line a little bit, just to clean up a little bit of the overshoot or undershoot as it may be. So now I'm going to take my ruler over. I'm going to make sure, again, that my tape goes to the seam line. So this tape that I have on my ruler, or if you just want to use the line without the tape, that's fine too. I just like the tape because I'm half blind. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make sure to line that tape right on that line. The other line that I'm concerned about is I want to make sure that this center line that we've made lines up on the center line on the ruler. So now I'm lined up. I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to slide up. There's half that diamond shape. Go right to the line, slide the ruler again, double check my line, make sure that that's lined up. Now I'm going to come down this side. So now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to slide down, travel the ditch, come up, and keep repeating those diamond shapes down in the valley between each of the V's, all the way over to the opposite side. So here is our center. We have now done our V-shapes with our 3 consecutive shorter V-shapes, and then we've separated those with our diamonds in the center. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go in between these two, and I'm going to put it in the registration line right in this short valley, so on each side. And that will take us to the next portion of this particular design. Come down, and I don't have to come all the way down, I can just bring it right down to there. And remember, the one thing that's very important is you want to make sure to use marking tools that you trust personally. That's very, very important, especially it builds confidence for yourself. You know that you don't have to worry about it. I have a wonderful tutorial up on different marking tools and how to get them out. So check that out as we work our way across here and make our marks. Now we've marked our valley points, and now we're going to use our V and we're going to slide in. I'm going to go in 2 inches right to the tape here. So this one up here is going to mimic the V shape here. And what I'm going to do is go into all of these valleys and put a V shape coming down from the top in. So line that up, come down, there, turn the ruler, lock that in, make sure my line lines up, make sure my tape lines up, come down the other side, slide the ditch, reline it up, make sure that lines up, make sure your tape lines up, slide down, slide the ditch, and repeat this all the way across. now at this point, let's go ahead and let's get some perspective on what we have going on here. Again, this is the center of the border right here. We've worked our way out from the center out. I stopped right at the point where, had I have continued, I would not have gotten a full triangle without running into the corner. I'm going to save my corners until the very end when I finish this. So I'm going to focus now on this portion and what am I going to do to fill in some of this area and make this border sing. As I look at this and I find that I'm going to head from left to right, what I'm going to do is to go into these short V's, and I'm going to go ahead and put a lotus feather in this one and also this bottom one. So that way it kind of mirrors itself and it's going to tie into each other. I think what I'm going to do in the diamonds here is I'm going to go ahead and do a crosshatch that's going to follow the angle that the V ruler is on its own. And then I'm going to alternate that every other one. So I will do a straight crosshatch, and then every other one I will do a curve crosshatch. So that way I get a little bit of interest, because again, our whole goal is not just to catch the viewer, but we want to keep them. We want to keep their eyes moving over the quilt. I'm doing a double bump up here into the corner, that way I fill in that tip and we're not going to have any floppy fabric. We're going to do this all the way across, and then we'll come down and we will do it in the bottom portions. Okay, now we're over at the far left side of our border, and we're going to work our way right. And what we're going to do is put our lotus here in this lower V portion, and then I'm going to go up every other one, and I'm going to fill this in. So my traveling path is going to be fill in the second one, so that way I have some relief quilting. Then I'm going to slide over, do my lotus feather here, and then travel the ditch to the next one and repeat the process all the way across the border. And I'm just going to put a simple swirl up, down, just to fill it in. Swirl up, swirl out, swirl in, up, head down, slide over and do the next section, and then continue across the border. Now we have that portion of the filler done. Now we're going to move into the diamonds. And again, center. These two, I'm going to use straight line crosshatch, and then we'll move into some curved crosshatch. So very simply, I'm just going to take the V ruler, I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to go ahead and do 1/2 inch. And I'm going to do that from the bottom up on both sides. In other words, I don't want to measure my 1/2 inch on the way up this way and then come down the other way to measure the 1/2 inch down. If I'm going up this way on this side, then I make sure that when I go from right to left, I go up as well. Therefore, I end up with the same narrow at the top. Again, that keeps me from having to do math and so much planning. So I'm going to slide, get my first line, slide up again. I'm checking with my lines on my ruler to make sure they're straight. And I'm just pre-marking just because there are times when, well, that's what I would prefer doing rather than being extremely cautious with the ruler. It's there, I can relax and pre-mark all of these and then just go for it as I go through it. Slide up, 1/2 inch. And again, I'm double checking this line, making sure that it's nice and straight. And if we hold our tongue right, when we get up there, it should line up lovely. Okay, so now we would continue on. I'm going to go ahead and pre-mark this one, and then I'll go ahead and quilt that. So now here we're working our way out from the center. Of course, we have our crosshatch, straight crosshatch, following the angle of the V ruler. And now for this one, as we head our way out, I'm actually going to do curved crosshatch. And you can just refer to the tutorial on doing the curved crosshatch to see the instructions for that. Okay, so now we've gotten this far on the regular part of our border. Now we're going to focus on the corner of our border. Now, very simply, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in a cornerstone. That's always the quick go-to. That way you know it's always going to work out. And then that way, wherever it works from the center to the end, it's going to be what it is. And actually, even though the top on both sides is going to match up perfect in the corners, the sides are going to be a little bit different because you can't depend upon a quilt. You're not always going to do this in a square. Sometimes, obviously, you're going to be doing it in a rectangle quilt shape. So it's going to be a little bit different where it ends up against that cornerstone. And for this tutorial, I'm just going to drop in a simple cornerstone. So the very first thing I'm going to do, I have my diagonal line, and then I'm very simply going to mark my cornerstone, line that up, go over, and that's just going to be a guide for me to work towards. And then the vertical. And so then very simply what I'm going to do is use my rulers and complete this exactly the same as I've been working. And where it ends here when I get to the cornerstone is where it ends there. It is what it is. And obviously your viewer does not know what your intention was, so it's going to look perfect no matter where it ends. So let's quilt that, and then we'll work on the cornerstone proper. Now that we've completed the horizontal border on the way across the top, what I want to do is take a few minutes and to show you some options for cornerstones. Now I'm going to take this square, which is our cornerstone, and I am actually going to create a design inside the 1/2 inch echo. I went ahead and put a 1/2 inch echo in here. I also made sure to thicken the lines just a little bit as I did it, just to pop the design in this border. Now what I'm going to do is use my straight ruler, and this is the Mystical Designer, the small one that we use for marking on the machine. I'm going to slide that from corner to corner. Any straight ruler will work. And then go from the other corner. And that's going to give me my guide marks. Now I'm going to grab my V ruler, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the 4-inch mark on my ruler. Now on these marks I'm going to go from the corner in, so I'm going to slide this line that's labeled the center line, because that's what it is, right up on there, and I'm going to take that right up into this tape just so it touches it, and make sure that this line is straight. I'm going to put my left line, I'm going to slide the ruler over, I'm going to use the center line that's marked here on the ruler, and then I'm going to line that up, make sure that my tape hits the 4-inch mark. And again, you can choose any height. You have to figure out what works best for you. Now I'm going to do that in all 4 corners. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take those V's and we're going to mimic the lotus feather in each one of these, and that will tie into that border very nicely. We have our cornerstone marked. Now we're going to go ahead and quilt that out. And now we would just treat it just like we would regular ditch work. I'm going to thicken these lines just a little bit so they pop and make my border pop. And I'm just going to go back and forth, stay on the line as close as I can. And then when we finish all 4 of these corners, then we're going to go in and we're going to add our lotus feather. Feather up into the miter. Remember your last one to do that double bump feather, bring it around, feather down the side, travel your ditch to the bottom of your teardrop, do your other side, up, back, up, little double bump, double bump right up into the corner, come around, and repeat this on all 4 of your cornerstones. Go up into the miter, up into the miter, come back by the teardrop, double bump, go in. Last one, really stretch it out right into that corner, come back down, fill in your feathers, come back, repeat on the other side, frond, frond, double bump, reach, come around, frond, frond, come down, lock your threads. Let's look at our wonderful border. Well, there we have it. We have the conclusion of the tutorial for the Mystical V border treatment. Now, as you work down the sides of the border, remember, you're going to baste, and what I typically like to do is to turn my machine to 6 stitches per inch, or just turn it on a very slow manual speed and just do a gentle curve all the way down the border as I complete the body portion of the quilt. And then I can work from the middle out to the edge, and you don't have to turn your quilt. I hope you've enjoyed. Have a wonderful day and take care of each other. And we'll see you back here at the Quilters Apothecary.